So anyone who hasn't had their rookie draft yet, maybe we'll give some undervalued players. Like, who do you think are rookies that are being undervalued by fantasy managers right now? Give me a name here off the top.
Well, I mentioned one earlier. We'll bring him up again. Pat Bryant on the Broncos. I also like Kyle Williams on the Patriots, and I bring them up together because they kind of go in the same range. Like, I have them as second round picks in my rookie rankings. Sometimes they go in that range. They often fall into the third. I'm not sure there's that much difference between their outlooks. Both guys taken in round 3 of the NFL draft. Both guys have a chance to start this year. Both guys are impressing in camp too. And that's not nothing. Like, I always want to hear those reports about rookies, especially that they look like they belong on an NFL field. And they do so far. Right now, long way from transitioning that from just the practice field to an actual regular season game, but you still want to hear that positive buzz about them. And we are hearing that. And, for Williams, Stephon Diggs coming back from a serious knee injury. I know all the reports have been glowing and you see him out there running and everything, but how many times have we seen older receivers, older players come back from serious injuries and maybe they rush back a little too quickly, but they come back, they look okay initially, and then they start to break down as the year goes along? I worry that could be the case for Diggs here. And if that does happen, I think it could really open the door for Kyle Williams to have a pretty big ceiling as a rookie. And then for Brian, I mean, Sean Payton, I don't know why he's been doing this in recent years. Since he's gone to the Broncos, he just wants to compare everybody to like the great Saints players that he had, whether it's Kamara, Jimmy Graham, or in the case of Pat Bryant, he got the Michael Thomas comparison. I'm not really putting too much stock in that, but you look at that passing attack, and Cortland Sutton just got the big new contract, but he's 30 years old this year, right? Like, he's not a young receiver by any means. Behind him, Marvin Mims. They've never really seemed to be that interested in giving Marvin Mims a lot of volume. It seems like he's just been more of like this kind of gadget guy. And I know he had some better games last year, but I don't know that he's ever going to become the player that people hope that he could have become. And Pat Bryant, I think, could step up and eventually emerge as the number one receiver in this offense, or at least a very competent number two. Next to, these old guys that could potentially break down, like Evan Ingram as well. We've seen Ingram get hurt in the past. So I really like Pat Bryant. I think those are bets that I'm really willing to make in the late second round before I start to get into the running backs that we talked about on a past episode, or some of the tight ends that I'm going to bring up in a second, who I also think are values.
I like both of those names. People that listen to our prospect breakdowns know that I loved Kyle Williams, a guy that, and honestly, I think Diggs can have a good season and be a nice redraft pick, and Williams can still really ascend as a dynasty asset through the season, because I think Demario Douglas is a nice slot receiver. Like, that's a pretty good 3 receiver set there, because I think the biggest development actually from camp is, obviously Williams playing well and practicing well, but Mac Hollins is not practicing like with this team. He was probably, I would say, the guy that could just run out there and be like the sacrificial X receiver. If there's an opening at X receiver, Kyle Williams might not have necessarily the size to do it, but he does have the skills to do it. 82nd percentile success rate versus press coverage and reception perception. I get it. Level of competition pretty different than what he was facing in college going to the NFL, but still the skills, the traits, the abilities are there for him to play at that position, while Diggs, who's always been a flanker, I think can win there, and then Douglas is your slot. Nice little 3 receiver set for the Patriots. And on Pat Bryant, I thought this was pretty interesting. They just rewarded Cortland Sutton, who ran around on 90.5% of the dropbacks last year. Nobody else was above 50%. It was like Cortland Sutton and a bunch of dudes in his orbit. Maybe Pat Bryant files into that orbit as well. Maybe him and Devon Bailey, who had like an okay rookie season, kind of rotate at that big slot receiver position. But what I thought was interesting, Boone, is when you look at Cortland Sutton last year, he was 73rd among wide receivers in yards after catch per reception. Like, obviously, yes, he's a vertical X receiver. You're not going to get a lot of yak in that role, but he's just not a tackle breaker. And he's not a guy that like beats zone coverage over the middle. When you look at Pat Bryant's prospect profile and reception perception, he was a better zone beater than a man beater, and actually was pretty sneaky after the catch. So I think that he makes a lot more sense, Pat Bryant, as a complement to Cortland Sutton than maybe some of those other guys do. Just in terms of that wide receiver room. Like I said, I like all of these picks here. So like Trey Harris is still an interesting pick to me as that maybe X receiver for the Chargers. That like I said, Kyle Williams is awesome there. The one I wanted to highlight, Jack Besh went in the 12th round of this. And By the way, I like both Texans receivers as well. Those are good bets. Like Jalen Noel, I can't quite figure out how he gets on the field if Christian Kirk is healthy and plays well, but like Jalen Noel's so damn good at football. Like I want to bet on him. But Jack Bech in the 12th round, we really jumped the shark on the Jack Bech like mini camp reports where it's like, oh no, Dante Thornton's running as a starter and Trey Tucker's playing over him. Like Jack Bech, all the reports are from camp that he's played a lot better when the pads come on. Oh yeah, probably because they're actually playing football now. That makes sense. The football player is playing better now that they're playing a little bit more football. I think he should have been grouped in with the Harrises, with the Higgins in the 9th round of this draft as opposed to where he went. I remain a very, very big Jack Bech fan, and him in the 12th round is a crime.
Another thing that I'll bring up with these rookie receivers, especially when you're looking at the ones that are like a little further down the draft board, you want to look at the quarterback they're attached to, right? You want to look at some of these guys, like I mentioned, Kyle Williams, Pat Bryant. They're attached to these young sophomore QBs that we really like that could be their quarterback for a very long time here. I really like Geno Smith. I still think Geno Smith is so underrated. I think that's good for Jack Bech. So that's another reason to like him. And then obviously Trey Harris being attached to, my guy and Justin Herbert, who I took in the 3rd round there. That's another one where Herbert's going to be around for a long time. So you're going to be able to build that connection. I think they're all really smart picks when you're picking in that range. And I think it's good to point out that I think they are a little bit closer because Trey Harris goes before them almost always. I think they should be a little bit closer to him in sort of that tier than they have been in a lot of, especially rookie drafts that I've done.
Yeah. And same with those Texans receivers, right? Like they're tied to CJ Stroud probably forever, and, like I really think I like the way that receiver room can come together with Nico Collins as the alpha, and Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins, who I think Higgins is going to get the deployment that he needs in offense. And also I think will help Nico Collins take fewer snaps on the line of scrimmage going forward. Maybe like imagine a player of Nico Collins' caliber, like getting to move around the formation more. Maybe Higgins can help him take some of those reps. So that's like, it's actually kind of impressive that all the guys in this range have pretty decent quarterback situations when you look at sort of those day 2 wide receivers. And that's why it's important to kind of track that group. But Boone, it would not be a dynasty pod if we didn't get you to go sicko mode here for the people to sign off. So give us just some sicko names here. There's some tight end depth names you're going to rattle off here.
I mean, these aren't quite sicko, but we'll see how far I go with it. Now, you look at the top 2 tight ends in this rookie class. You look at Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland. Everybody focuses on them. If you can get them, great. If you can't, this is a very deep tight end class. There's a lot of talent, and we could start with Elijah Arroyo on the Seahawks, who they just dropped Noah Fant. They talked all off season long. There was all the speculation that they could get rid of Fant at any point. He stuck around so long that it seemed like he was going to stay with the team. And then they cut him right before training camp. And now this opens the door for Elijah Arroyo to potentially be the starter in this offense, to be a guy that's going to get some usage. He's a great pass catching tight end. He's somebody that you could look to. Mason Taylor looks like he's going to start for the Jets. Potentially these guys could contribute in year 1. We've seen rookie tight ends do this in the last few seasons. So I really like those two. If we go a little bit further down, Harold Fannin Jr., who was just insanely productive in college, he goes to the Browns. He's trapped behind David Njoku, but you look at him in college, they moved him all around the formation. Could the Browns do something similar? Could they move him around the formation and get him out there with David Njoku a bunch, use him as a weapon on the offense? I think they should. I really, really like Harold Fannin, who you can get a little bit later. Terrence Ferguson on the Rams, another guy who's going to be stuck behind Tyler Higbee, who has just been a staple for the Rams. Tyler Higbee getting up there, probably not going to be around much longer. And Ferguson, somebody else who could get out there in 2 tight end sets. Now, when you have 2 receivers that are going to command the volume that those Rams receivers do, might be tough for him to have a big fantasy impact in year 1 unless Higbee gets hurt. But still somebody that we could be talking about next year as a guy that's almost right up there with where Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland are. Aronde Gadsden on the Chargers, and maybe this is the one where we're going a little more sicko mode, but the Chargers do not have a starting tight end. I like Tyler Conklin. I think he's underrated. Maybe he'll be able to hold off Gadsden this year, but Gadsden is a very strong pass catcher. He's a good athlete. We've already seen some plays, some highlights coming out of camp where Herbert's finding him downfield. If he can emerge this season, we've talked about how Other than Ladd McConkey, not really an established number 2 pass catcher. I like Trey Harris. We just saw Mike Williams retire unexpectedly. So could Gadsden step up and be that de facto number 2 pass catching option at some point this season for the Chargers? It is certainly possible. So just look at these tight ends in Dynasty. If you're willing to wait, if you don't need them to necessarily be in your lineup right away, you could grab these guys and put them on your bench. And we talk about their value getting much bigger within 12 months. I think all these guys are going to be worth a lot more in Dynasty when we're looking at next offseason, and have a chance at least to get out there this year and potentially do something for your team as well.
Totally agree. The one that really stands out to me is Terrence Ferguson, who's a player I really like, and I know Sean McVay is in love with. And like, I was updating my rankings today and just looking like where I compare to consensus. I am like I'm like 16 spots higher than consensus on like both of these guys, like Tyler Higbee and Terrence Ferguson, which it's just like one of those guys is going to hit this year. Okay. Like one of those guys is going to way out kick like 42 and 37 consensus ranking. So I like targeting Terrence Ferguson there, because I know this team wants to play a little more 12 personnel.